Hi, everyone. Today we're talking broadly about 2025's hiring and firing problems, starting from recent layoff news to looking at how the year started. Are we screwed? Have we always been? Or are we just complaining? From Reuters, November 6, 2025, US layoffs for October surged to two-decade high. Challenger data shows in October, US companies announced just over 150,000 layoffs, which is the highest for that month in more than 20 years. Okay, 22 years. So, according to Challenger, Gray, and Christmas, that's a 175% jump from last year, which pushes the total cuts for 2025 to just over a million, which is already the most since 2020. Tech, retail, and service industries led the way as companies tightened budgets. They adopted more AI tools. By the way, I read a few articles that explain that AI actually didn't have the biggest impact in this round of layoffs or in much of 2025's layoffs, apparently. So think about that. This thing that is supposed to contribute pretty massively to layoffs didn't even really have an impact yet. So that's kind of scary. Anyway, it goes on to say that these companies scaled back after the pandemic hiring surge. So, rising costs and weaker consumer spending also played a big role, with nearly 450 companies announcing job cut plans in just October. All right, and as this is going on, from CNN, from today, Supreme Court keeps full SNAP payments on hold with short-term order. Talks about how the Supreme Court extended an order that lets the Trump administration delay full SNAP payments for November. So while the government shutdown continues, they're able to do this. So the move pauses a lower court ruling that required full benefits for the 40 million Americans who rely on food stamps. So, guys, that's over 10% of Americans that are reliant on food stamps, that have been struggling, find it hard just to feed their families. The Supreme Court is making it that much more difficult. And going back a month to early October, CNBC economy report shows hiring at lowest since 2009 as economists turn to alternative data during shutdown blackout. A couple key takeaways here. So far, at that point in 2025, planned job cuts had reached nearly 950,000, which was already 24% higher than all of last year and the highest since the pandemic in 2020. Like, look at the number of employees that have been laid off at major companies, and this doesn't even take into account the last 2 weeks. Okay, so I think it's alarming on its own just looking at October data, but I think it's a good idea to work backwards and look at what happened this year in terms of hiring, firing. ABC News, September 4th, 2025, US job cuts soared in August, outplacement company says. All right, so there were 86,000 layoffs, which is up 40% from July. So in just 1 month, up 40%, and that was the highest for that month since 2020. I also wanted to take a moment to go over January, right? Right before Trump joins, right before shit hits the fan. The report from Reuters from March talking about January says that US job openings had risen to 7.74 million, showing that the labor market was fairly steady at that time. Layoffs fell for the fourth month in a row. Okay, great. But then it says that there were concerns over Trump's new tariffs and deep federal spending cuts related to Doge that were, at the time, dampening business confidence. And also in the article, it says, unfortunately, the report tells us nothing about how companies will respond to the threat of tariffs and rising uncertainty, and this could take several months to unfold. Here we are. Things have been unfolding now for, I guess, 7, 8 months since this article, but about 10 since Trump's been in office. I love this part of the article, though. It says that the share of workers holding multiple jobs was the highest since the Great Recession. So obviously, even in January, things were amazing back then. We have yet to win a tariff war. The U.S. dollar compared to the euro is pretty shit. The economy isn't doing that well. More layoffs in October. than there have been in the last 22 years. Hiring has been massively slowing since the summer. And we're going into a new year, a second year of Trump, with probably a lot less confidence than even heading into 2025. So it's almost as if furloughing almost a million workers hurts the economy. People lack confidence, literally aren't getting paid, so they tighten their belts. It's almost as if tariffs aren't a good idea. Maybe cutting programs like SNAP also hurt the economy. Maybe it's a bad idea to elect someone who's denied losing in the general election and has actually rug pulled his own followers, I think, twice this year. Again, this is a guy that bragged to people in the Oval Office that his buddy, Charles Schwab, made a ton of money after Trump essentially shorted the market back in early April. Let's see how November, December measure up against 2023, 2024. I'm not super hopeful. Anyway, thanks.